Picture a mummy, perfectly preserved for thousands of years. But this one wasn't made by ancient priests or with fancy rituals. Nope, this was a total accident, a trick of nature that literally stopped time in its tracks. And that is exactly what we're diving into today.
You know, when you hear the word mummy, your brain probably goes straight to ancient Egypt, right? Sarcophagus, pyramids, bodies wrapped in miles of bandages. But what if I told you that the best preserved bodies ever found had absolutely zero human help?
So yeah, this whole thing actually has a name. Natural mummification. It's exactly what it sounds like. The body is preserved simply because of where it ended up. The environment itself does all the heavy lifting, bringing that whole process of decomposition to a dead stop.
So the big question is, how in the world does nature pull this off? Well, to get how preservation works, you first have to understand what it's up against. So let's get into how the environment can literally stop the clock on decay. It really all comes down to one tiny thing: bacteria. These microscopic critters are basically nature's cleanup crew. They are programmed to break down all organic matter. So if you want to preserve a body, you have to figure out a way to stop these bacteria cold.
And when you break it down, it's a surprisingly simple four-step deal. First, a body is left out in the elements. Then, naturally, bacteria get to work. But then, and this is the magic moment, a crucial environmental factor jumps in. Could be intense cold, extreme dryness, something. And bam, just like that, decomposition is halted. That third step, that's the absolute game changer.
And it turns out nature has a few different tricks up its sleeve for hitting that pause button. Let's look at the three main recipes, if you will, that it uses to create these incredible time capsules. First up, extreme dryness. Just imagine a scorching hot desert or a super dry windy cave. In places like these, the environment is basically a giant natural dehydrator. It just sucks all the moisture out of a body. And since bacteria need water to do their thing, well, no water, no bacteria. Simple as that. Okay, recipe number 2 is extreme cold. And this one, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Think about high-altitude mountains or the Arctic. These places are nature's deep freeze. The temperature plummets so low that all that bacterial activity just freezes solid, perfectly preserving everything exactly as it was. And finally, our third recipe. Okay, this is where things get really wild. Unique chemistry. In some very specific places, like the peat bogs in northern Europe, the water is super acidic and has almost no oxygen in it. This weird chemical cocktail actually tans the skin and preserves soft tissues with unbelievable detail. So let's just pull this all together for a second. Whether it's by drying everything out, freezing it solid, or soaking it in a weird chemical bath, the goal is always the same: shut down the bacteria. It's 3 totally different paths to the exact same incredible result. All right, so that's the science. But you're probably thinking, okay, show me the proof. Well, you got it. Let's take a look at some of the most famous time capsules ever discovered, real-life examples of these accidental mummies.
These finds are just incredible proof of what the source material calls nature's own method of preserving remains. See, it's not about human techniques at all. It's all about the environment. And the evidence is it's astounding.
Okay, our first stop takes us to a very familiar place, but with a fantastic twist. See, long before the pharaohs were even thinking about building pyramids, the Egyptian desert was already making its own mummies, completely by accident. These mummies are actually older than the famous pharaohs and all their elaborate rituals. They were simply buried in the scorching hot desert sand, and their bodies were just naturally dried out. And because of them, we have this amazing window into what life was like even before the first pyramid was ever built. All right, now let's take a trip from that blistering heat all the way to the freezing cold of the Andes Mountains. Because high up on these peaks, another kind of natural mummy was found: the Inca ice mummies.
Discovered on these insanely high mountaintops, these people were preserved by the extreme freezing temperatures. The cold created a perfect time capsule, freezing them solid and stopping the clock for more than 500 years. The preservation is so good, it's unbelievable. Scientists can study their clothes, the food in their stomachs, even the DNA of diseases they had. It's an unprecedented look at Inca life.
Our final case study. And honestly, this might be the most fascinating of all, because it wasn't heat or cold that preserved them. It was some very strange chemistry. Let's meet the bog bodies of northern Europe.
Found in the acidic, oxygen-starved waters of peat bogs, these bodies are famous for their amazingly well-preserved skin and hair.
The unique chemistry of the bog water literally tanned their skin like leather. And these bodies, they tell us incredible, often violent stories from the Iron Age, giving us clues about ancient rituals, sacrifice, and justice.
So, after looking at the science and these absolutely incredible discoveries, what's the ultimate takeaway? What's the big lesson we can pull from all this?
It's actually pretty simple, but profound. When it comes to stopping time, the most powerful force isn't human skill or some complex ritual. It's the environment itself. A chance encounter with the perfect conditions, a desert, a mountaintop, a bog, that is the ultimate preserver.
And that just leaves you wondering, right? Considering what nature can do just by accident, what other secrets from our past are still out there, locked away in ice or sand, perfectly preserved, just waiting for us to find them?